You know me. My name's Robert Shapiro, and I want to talk to you about something. I do work on my own, and I do other things, shamanic work and mystical work, and you can read about that if you want. The thing about it is that working has caused me to realize certain things. The latest thing I've been paying attention to, amongst others, and you know how that goes, is dreams and not just their effect on our lives here, but the cross effect, meaning our lives here and our lives' effect on our dreams, as well as our dreams' effect on our lives. And I realized lately, the past few months or so, maybe the past few years actually, that each world is its own unique world, but they're united. And they're united in a physical experience that we have. One of the experiences that I'm most aware of is that stage between sleep and wakefulness in our world. When I have time and there's no alarm to ring, and I wake up slowly, I find myself in that between stage that's still very restful and feels like there's a connection from the dream world to this world. And yet, that connection is more in the dream world. It's only when I begin to actually wake up that I realize that. Well, what's been going on for me for a while now is I've been aware of the growth I'm having in the dream world. I have this ongoing dream where I see somebody that I identify with as the guy. He sort of looks like a younger version of me, but he also looks a little different. I've thought for years now that I'm learning how to be a guide for him, and so I have to understand his life, even though I'm aware that it is a dream. I'm also aware that my whole life is about spirit and spirituality, so I don't try and separate those concepts as a practical application in my world. So, for a while, there's been an awareness of change in the dream. For example, going back, the guy used to get lost all the time. Something would happen and would trigger fear, and he'd run into this place or run into that place and get completely lost. And it would be distressing, and I'd wake up. So I was having dreams about being lost, okay? And you can find lots and lots of things about that on dream books and other places. All you therapists out there who are viewing these things, and I know there are quite a few, you know about these things. But then I made the conscious effort in this world to help the guy, the being I see in the dream, that maybe the thing he was afraid of was not necessary to be afraid of. Maybe it was an imagined fear, as we can understand in our world. And as a result of this imagined fear, the guy would see things as they weren't, but just as he was afraid that they were. Well, anyway, some of that must have soaked in, because some time ago, the thing that used to frighten the guy, he'd see two people walking on the sidewalk towards him, and they felt menacing to him. And that's when he would jump off the sidewalk, run into the building, and get lost. Well, it doesn't take too much brain power to figure out what that's about. Still, without wandering into those areas, because I'm not a therapist, nor do I claim to be, um, then I'd wake up, and it felt like, oh, there's just no growth going on there. What can I do? But eventually, I would just say out loud or think towards the guy, and he made a change. He decided it was sort of like gritted his teeth, and he waited until he got closer to the people approaching him on the sidewalk, two other guys. And he could see that there was nothing wrong with them at all. They were completely friendly, and they sort of waved at him, and he waved at them, and he walked by them, and that was fine. And from that point on, there was no more running into the building and getting lost. So, there you are. The latest thing happened. And I'm going into all of this because I think some of you have variables of dreams like this. But even if you don't, you'll know more about me, so for some of you that'll be interesting. And anyway, the latest thing is that I'm understanding from my work, the channeling that I do, the teaching and so on, as well as my own awareness, that this is a time of creation. I know that we're literally creating our world, but at the same time, I also know that our world is going through all of these extreme struggles, and what are we going to do about this, and what are we going to do about that, and some of the things seem unsolvable, like radioactivity and so on. So, I've been working on that in spiritual ways, yes, and helping people to work on it in spiritual ways. You know about that if you're a regular attendee to this YouTube site, YouTube Benevolent Magic. But also, there's more, and that's that the conscious awareness in me of actually changing in myself and my world changing as well is present. So the latest thing is that the guy he doesn't run into the building and get lost anymore, but he starts out in some place that feels good, and then he gets this feeling that he has to go to his car, and he can never find his car, and then he gets lost, but he gets lost in environments that are pleasant. The people he sees on the street are nice. If he goes up to a house and asks somebody to help him find his car or to find his way back to the place he started in, everybody's friendly, so there's no hostility. This time, through again my awareness of my own spiritual world, my awareness of creating the world, I'm not completely disconnecting my experience with the guy, because I'm aware that it might not just be guide training, it might also be my own existence, my own experience. And see a lot of nodding heads out there. So, this time, when I became aware, I have the dream, and I become aware of the guy in this world he's in. He's in this big place, and it sort of looks like a nightclub, but really it's very bright, and it's like daytime, and there's glass windows, so there's no disconnect from the world beyond the doors of this place. And people are having a good time, and I can't tell if people are drinking, but it's sort of like a gathering place, and there's tables, people are sitting around talking. And the guy's there, and he's talking to other people, and he's having fun. And then he gets the feeling like he has to go out and find his car. When he came into the place was like the building was more prominent, and that housed this place, this nice place to meet folks. And he parked his car. I do remember that. And he goes out, then it's like the whole world beyond, when he leaves the place, the whole world beyond is much busier, like a big city, and the building itself takes on a general appearance of being much smaller, but he catches himself. He's just a few steps away from the door of the place he left, and he turns around and he goes back. He doesn't go to look for his car. He turns around and he goes back, and he finds himself back in the place immediately to him. And the people pick him up and they carry him around on their shoulders, and they're so happy that he made that decision. So, I know you think like I'm sharing my dreams with you, but there's more to it than that. I've been getting counseled, and of course, you know, not only do I post videos here on YouTube, but also I channel for the magazine, the journal, called Sedona Journal of Emergence. So I get information that way, plus I channel for myself regularly. And I've been getting counseled that right now we're involved in learning creationism. It's like we're an apprentice to Creator. And one of the lessons coming through regularly now is that it's so important to be conscious of our daydreams or fantasies. And we must do things like that in ways that are benevolent. For those of you who don't have that word in your language, it just means good and kind to everyone and everything, including yourself. And it always has the most good and kind outcome. So that's basically a nutshell description of benevolent, but you can look it up. Now, what evolves from this awareness is that when we daydream, or when we have fantasies, that it's important to not just catch ourselves and, as the training we've all received, stop your daydreaming, get on with life. That it's important to take that daydream to the end of the scene. Imagine a scene in a play or in a movie. Take it to the end of that scene, so there's a completion of some sort. Because these daydreams are really about what we're creating. And that brings me to my last point, which is really very important for us all. Make an effort. I've been making the effort, and I know you can too. Make an effort to daydream, or you might say fantasize, about things that would be benevolent for you and benevolent for others. Because this is how I really feel. This is one of the big ways how we're going to change our world. You notice when I was talking before, my mentioning problems that just won't go away and don't seem to have a simple solution. Such as I picked radioactivity because that's a scientific thing. What are we going to do about radioactive waste? Really? People who have been accumulating this all over the planet who deal with radioactivity or produce electricity for us. And we might not be happy with how they're doing it, but radioactivity, atomic power, produces a tremendous amount of electricity for us. And it's really going to have to change. So, I feel, and you all know this, based upon the videos here, and the books and so on, and the magazine articles, that magic, but magic of a practical sort, is what's needed. So, not to put too fine a point on it, instead of fantasizing or daydreaming about how you're going to get what you need or what you ought to get, or even fantasizing or daydreaming about revenge, which is something we have all done in the past at one time or another. And for some of you, it's more a part of your life. I'd recommend that you just jump straight to how you would like to get along in life, how you would like to live. Try to picture yourself living in some benevolent circumstance where you are completely happy with your life, and that others around you seem to also be happy and comfortable with their lives. The reason is not because I'm trying to preach at you and tell you how to live. The reason is that I feel very strongly, on the basis of my experience, granted a lot of which I haven't shared here yet, that, as other people say, miracles can happen. And these miracles are really, I feel, they can be prompted by this benevolent magic, where all souls cooperate and Creator offers Creator's blessings. I know some of you out there think of this as religion, and yet that can be a good thing. Religion, I feel, has been created to improve the quality of our life. But since it's often run by or directed by human beings who have their own biases, their own desires, their own needs, and we all understand that, we're like that too, then sometimes it goes down a different avenue and becomes the stuff that history is made of. And as my old history teacher used to say, history is about groups of unhappy people in ceaseless conflict for power. That was his nutshell meaning small, concise definition of history. And so, rather than continue to have struggles and mayhem and suffering, I feel if we can now make an effort to catch ourselves, if we're daydreaming or fantasizing about something that involves violence, and may even include violence to ourselves because we're afraid and worried about our lives, if we can make the effort, and it will take like a self-discipline, I've noticed it does, to daydream or fantasize about something that is good for us. And I want to say, don't be afraid to do that. Try it as homework. Fantasize and daydream consciously. Make the effort. Sit down and fantasize about a good world you'd like to be in. And all those you love and care about are in that world too, if you want to include them. But make it all benevolent. This is a mighty long lead-in, but Grandfather asked me to do this so that you would understand not only more about my life, but you would understand more about what he's going to talk about. Grandfather's going to talk about these things now, and I'll try to put this video together as well as possible. But as you know, my skills in video making leave a lot to be wanted. But hopefully, you'll at least be able to hear it, and perhaps even see it in some way that is viewable. All right. Grandfather will be up next. Well, maybe I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. If you don't mind, since I kind of like to keep the thread going, and taking these things, I know they look like colas, but I'm giving credit where credit is due. They're just an herbal thing I'm taking that allow me to speak. I'm just going to go into the channeling with the video running, so that I don't have to try and put it together, and it might look a bit amateurish, but here we go. I'm also going to expose you to my process, so that I might even put this up on a channeling blog that I post to very rarely, as those of you who've come to see, but now you get to see how it happens. So, I'm asking that whoever comes here to speak now be kind and wise, be able to speak with great profoundness, if that's called for, and that the energy pass through me in the most benevolent way for me, and be received that way. benevolently by others. All right. How about that, eh? Grandfather. Goodlife. Now, I'm going to talk for a short time because Robby forgot to bring the water bottle over here. So I might speak a little quieter. And just say this. I have given instructions a little bit in the past about dreams. But do make an effort now, in your daydreams and fantasies, to stay with something that's benevolent. But if you catch yourself dreaming about how you're going to get this person or get that person, just stop. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just say, okay, let's change it to something more benevolent. Then change it so that you are living in a benevolent world where everybody likes you just the way you are, and that you like everybody else just the way they are. And you're all having a good time, a good life, and everyone in that daydream or fantasy is enjoying themselves, not by harming others, but having a most benevolent experience. I know that for you, that's going to take a lot of discipline, and you're going to feel very foolish at times. But since this is only something you are doing, and nobody else knows you're doing it, whether you're coming out of sleep or whether you're just having a daydream at work or in the office or someplace else, only you are going to know about it. So there's no reason to feel embarrassed or silly. Sometimes when you do feel embarrassed or silly, it's because others have shamed you. They've said something that would make you feel ashamed to be yourself. This happens very often when you're growing up, and that's when you learn how to not be yourself. When you were born in a way where you could be yourself. And as a baby, for the first 3 to 6 months, you were totally yourself, even though, of course, you were completely vulnerable and you needed others to take care of you. And you rapidly developed love for those others, just as they had it for you, their precious young one. In the process, though, they and other family members would talk to each other, and you would gradually pick up on the language, but more importantly, you would always, and this is important to know, you would always in the beginning pick up on the feelings, because you were born with instinct and an awareness that physical feelings always preceded anything else. So, you spend the first 3 to 6 months of your life discovering how that works on the physical level and attempting to make sense out of that as compared to what occurs on the spirit level, since you come from spirit and soul to be born in this world. And in the course of that, you essentially learn that what takes place on the spirit level, where you remember who you are and always know these things, that on the physical level, where you basically have to forget who you are so that you can create and recreate your world, then you gradually forget who you are and pay more attention to the things that people say, and pretty soon you forget that feelings come first and all else follows. When that happens, you slowly unlearn to be yourself. You look to others to guide you on how to be. If that guidance is benevolent and kind, then very often you have a good beginning. But if it is harsh or critical. Perhaps your parents or your family is frightened for some reason, and thus they have a tendency to speak out suddenly. They might apologize afterwards, but what has been spoken not just in words, but in feelings. And thus you get instructed on the feeling level that something that you have said or done was wrong. And you might have the rest of your life to try and figure that out. So, without going into all of that, since your therapists and counselors can help you with that, I'll simply say this, that what's going on for you now is an opportunity to recreate your world in the way you would like it to be, yes, but also in a way that is magical. So if you're having a fantasy or a daydream, take it out to an ending of some sort if it's at all possible. Or if life interrupts and you have to just stop suddenly, try to return to it later when you have a chance to finish it. It will be a discipline at first, a self-discipline, to make your fantasies and daydreams benevolent, but I feel it will be worth it. And combined with doing benevolent magic and other things taught here and on the written blogs and in the books, you can turn this world around. You really can recreate this world and recreate your life. But you will have to use some of the abilities you naturally use as your soul self, as your spirit self, with the knowledge that you have there. And one of the things you do there is magic, as Robby calls it, because things happen for no apparent reason, and thus Robby calls it benevolent magic, because you want things to happen benevolently for yourself and, of course, others. Then, what is called magic, benevolent magic, in this world, is really just a natural way of being in spirit world. Then, this daydreaming thing, the fantasizing thing, becomes a portion of that. And after a while, the daydream or the fantasy is something that you look forward to. It's not meant to be done instead of your life, but it's a way to transform, yes, to recreate life, so that the unsolvable problems in this life become solvable in ways that you couldn't have imagined how it could happen. But those of you who've watched or read about or understand the simple process of benevolent magic know that as long as it is benevolent for all beings, then all souls very gracefully, in their own time, choose to allow it to happen, because it not only doesn't hurt them in their lives, it often seems like just a natural thing to do. They don't have to change radically. It's usually some tiny little thing. Maybe instead of going like this, they go like that. Some simple little thing that they hardly notice, but taken cumulatively, it allows this benevolent change for you and or others. You know these things. So, just to put it all together, a daydream that is benevolent might very well be, and I can assure you, is a portion of transforming your world so that it becomes benevolent for all beings, and the unsolvable problems become resolved, and you don't even necessarily have to know how it happens. But radiation, toxic waste, and all of these things that seem to be unsolvable, although I do encourage people who are working on it to continue, then the world is recreated. It is transformed through the good actions of all those doing things physically for others, including, very possibly, yourself, and the good actions of all those working with dreams, daydreams, and spirituality. Keep it all as benevolent as possible. All right? So, that's your long video for today. Hopefully it'll come out fine. Now Robby will be back in a moment. Now I'm coming back here. And putting on my glasses sort of helps me to see things. You know that. But I guess it's also a way for you to tell when I'm here and when Grandfather's here. Sometimes I'll do a video without my glasses on, but, well, you've seen that when I talked a bit about myself as a channel. Anyway, that's the video for today. I hope it works for you. I'll probably put it up on the channeling blog too, because I know some of you are interested in that. So even though it might show up on one of my other blogs, such as Explorer Rays, I'll probably put it on channeling. I think it's called Channeling Guidance for the Channeling Student. A mighty long title. Anyway, I hope this helps. Good life to you all.